Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, or rather tonight, I am continuing with my Tarot Tonic series. To be honest, I've only done one other Tarot Tonic video and I'll link that in the description box below, when I was looking at the most expensive tarot deck that I've ever bought and what I thought about it and what I thought about expensive tarot decks in general. But in tonight's video, I'm taking a bit of a different meandering path on looking at a different topic altogether. And for your visual feast, I have in front of me Songs for the Journey Home, which is a tarot deck created by Dwariko, von Sommaruga and Catherine Cook. They're two ladies from New Zealand who had created this beautiful deck many years ago. It is now out of print, but you can still find it in secondhand, like Facebook pages come up now and again. And I think it's a stunning deck. And of course I also think we all have the same final home. We all end up in the same place at the end of our journey. So I think I'm going to title tonight's video From Broke Stoner to Dream Life, or something along those lines. And it's basically looking at the power of consciously visualizing and manifesting the kind of life that you want. Now, there are a couple of disclaimers that go along with this, and I'll talk about those. Hopefully I'll remember as I go through. I should say, of course, I do have my Tarot Tonic up here. I coined the name after gin and tonic. You know, it's a play on words from gin and tonic. Because here it is very hot at the moment. And while I love a nice cup of tea, the reality is that it's just unbearably hot. And also, I wanted to be a bit more relaxed and informal with my Tarot Tonic videos. Right? They have a meandering path through them. They're not planned or rehashed or anything like that. I mean, my videos aren't in general because I don't like that, and also because I don't have the memory to, memorize a structure or anything formal like that. But it does help when you talk about certain topics to have a bit of a relaxed, informal energy about the subject and about the way that you're presenting it. So, cheers! So, from broke stoner to manifesting my dream life. What is it that I mean when I talk about dream life? Because right then and there, right from the start, you're posed with a conundrum. What is it that you really want to do? And you might think that you know straight away what that is. My experience is that few people have really worked out what it is that they truly want to do. And if you have, you're very blessed indeed. For most people, when they talk about a dream life, it just means not having to put up with a crappy corporate job or something along those lines. Being free from debt, being free from the shackles of the daily grind, the hamster wheel that keeps on going on and on. For me, I just want to make it clear that when I talk about my dream life, I don't mean that it's absolutely perfect and there's never any problems. Far from it. I struggle with just about as many challenges and issues as every other person. Okay? By the way, if you hear a really weird noise in the background, it is a frog. I can't mimic it. It sounds, just weird. But if there are strange noises in the background, it's because it's a frog going off. It is nighttime and there's a little bit of rain. So anyway, So yes, my life isn't like it's like a perfect fairy tale or anything like that. But there was a time in my life when I was in the midst or in the grip of a marijuana addiction. It was quite severe. It was daily, it was habitual, and I certainly had no strength to really do anything, to be honest. I was still employed, although looking back, it's really a miracle because as the addiction progressed, I used to come into work later and later. 8 becomes 8:30, 8:30 becomes 8:45, 8:45 becomes 9:10. I remember sometimes walking in at 9:30. And I think the reason why I got away with it was because I'd been there for quite some time and I knew how to do everything very efficiently. And there was a struggle to find, to fill other positions. So they were kind of stuck with me, I think. But anyhow, there I was. And I didn't know that I was spiraling into this addiction. I mean, if you had told me that I had an addiction, I would have said no. I was high. I was experiencing a different kind of life. And I should say that this was in my mid-20s, and I only started smoking when I was in my early 20s. So I started in my early 20s, and by the time I was in my mid-20s, only about, say, 3 or 4 years later, I developed an addiction. At one point I was even selling it at work. That's another story. I'm not proud of it, by the way. I laugh because I just think about how insane that time was for me. But there was a lot of indulgence, like this guy here. And what had happened is that over time, it started having the completely opposite effects to what I did initially when I first started smoking it. So, and this is the crux of it. Now, there are some deeper undercurrents in play, and I discussed my addiction with a therapist later on, who basically told me that the research at that time, as it was, basically said that, there are 3 types of people that should never touch it, really, or should be very, very wary of touching it, but basically don't go there, and it's like people who have a traumatic childhood, people who have a history of family trauma in childhood. So that was the first one. The second one was people who have a history of mental illness in their family, and the third one was smoking when you're a teenager. Okay, and I definitely tick one of these, potentially 2. But of course, you don't know what you don't know, And when you're in your 20s, I mean, you know everything. So anyhow, I spiraled deeper and deeper into this addiction. My strength basically was sapped from me. And I think weed is one of those herbs that demands respect and really needs respect. I went from my initial experience of it was one of complete bliss and unity with all of life. I understood the hippie movement in the 60s completely. And one where I connected on an infinitely spiritual level with nature and with trees, where I felt the pulse of our earth, beating like a living thing. Gaia is not a theory for me. For me, it's like a fact that our earth is a living, sentient being. And it helped me to sleep, and it had lots of positive effects on me. So that was the beginning. And as my addiction went on and went on, it awoke in me something phenomenal that had laid dormant. But I didn't know where to go beyond that. I could tell that my experiences weren't like other people's experiences, because for other people, for my friends, they just wanted to get high and play games or go play some pool or go out to a club or something. But for me, it was like this immense spiritual experience, an immersion to this divine higher love. And I also explored this with my therapist later on, and he basically said to me, that was the first time that also I probably felt like I wasn't walking on eggshells in my life, and that was absolutely true. And that's why it's so appealing. That's why I understand addiction, and anyone who's addicted, I know it stems often from other trauma, without doubt. So anyway, I went from that experience to the opposite end of the spectrum, where it gave me anxiety. I lost appetite. I stopped sleeping. My strength, was gone. And there were other things that happened before that. I, left a relationship that wasn't fulfilling, but it wasn't a bad relationship, but it just didn't align to whom I was becoming. There was just a whole lot of experiences leading up to my Saturn return, that period in your late 20s and early 30s. So that's the start from my story, basically. That's, the beginning of the conversation. And like I said, this is a meandering conversation through the perils of addiction, and the journey to heal and to find meaning in life, and the power to grow and to consciously align to a higher power, and therefore to manifest the life of your dreams. Because I got to the point where I was broke. I had to quit my job in the end. It wasn't a job that aligned with me. Never regret that in one single bit. So therefore, I had no money, or I had very little money. I went on to unemployment benefits at the time. And quite frankly, for me, I realized that unless I lived an authentic life, it wasn't worth living for me. Now, the ongoing addiction to marijuana basically meant that I hit rock bottom, okay? I hit rock bottom. It affected my health really badly in terms of anxiety and panic attacks and things like that. And I pretty much came to have a full-blown nervous breakdown, which is very dangerous for me because I had already been in hospital prior to it, and that's a story for another time. But basically, I had been in hospital for a mental health issue prior, and here I was looking at the potential of it basically, happening again, and I knew that I just couldn't go there. Basically, that would be the end of me. And so I had to quit. But I had to quit because I reached rock bottom, okay? And I think that's the case for many in addiction. And this is actually quite a painful story in many ways. But anyhow, I'll keep on going. Talk about a painful experience, the 10 of Swords, which is here the 10 of Wind Songs, right? The butterfly caught in a spider's web. From the moment that I quit, it took me about a year. I'm not kidding you. It took me about a year for the fog, for the clouds to lift. But definitely the fog. Fog, I think, is a great way to describe addiction to marijuana. I can't talk about other drugs, but marijuana for me is like, it's just incredible. It's such an awakening herb, and at the same time, I abused it, and I abused it in the context of having, a traumatic childhood. So I shouldn't have gone near it from that sense, or at least not to the extent that I did, because it just became more and more and more, right? First you smoke it once a month, then you smoke it once a week, then you smoke it every few days, then you smoke it every day, then you smoke it twice a day, and the anxiety grows bigger, and therefore you smoke more because you think, oh, it helps my anxiety. But the truth, for me at least, and for others that I've seen, is that it actually makes anxiety worse. So there I was, rock bottom, 10 of swords, rock bottom. And it took a year for that fog to clear, to get my mind back. And what I mean by that is that while I was in the midst of this addiction, I've seen this, and I continue to see with people who are habitual chronic smokers of pot, is that while they are in the midst of it, they, like, you honestly think that you're enlightened. You're not going to be part of the system, man, and it's just so childish in some ways. That it's us and them. It's a very polarized worldview as well. Okay. So the irony or the tragedy of it all is that pot was equally a gateway drug in terms of opening the gates of consciousness and of alignment with our earth and the energy of our living earth and our trees and herbs. And for me, it was a truly shamanic experience in so many ways, but abused and smoked in the wrong context by people who should never smoke. Well, I should have never smoked the quantity that I did. It was truly phenomenal. Looking back. It's like a gate. It's potent. It's a gateway herb, but it's also something that can, entrap you in your own mindset. You're trapped in your own mind and into your own way of thinking that is set, and you can't get outside of that. And the irony is, or the tragedy is, that you think that you're more enlightened than, the other average person out there. I actually remember, get this, I remember once walking into my therapist's office and saying, I was like, this was early on, and I was rather confident and I knew everything. And I said, well, there's two types of people in the world. There's the conscious and unconscious, or you also see this in a lot of channels. There's people who are asleep and those who are awakened, right? And he said, wrong. There are two types of being. That's actually a very important distinction, because at any one point, any one of those people that you see out on the street can change the way that they are, the way that they be. But when you say that there's only two types of people, that means that it's black and white, and that they can never, no matter what, ever change. So anyhow, I'm diverging a bit, and I'll be going on all sorts of different tangents in this. But the bottom line is, I reached rock bottom. It took me a year to get my mind back, to come out of that fog, out of that cloud of confusion. Okay. And to be honest, once you quit, or when you decide to quit, and it's not just weed, it can be anything, that's when the real hard work starts, okay? Because there's no more illusions, right? You're now faced with a reality. For my reality was I was broke. My reality was I had no relationship. My reality was that, I was 29 with like no family, and actually for the first time thinking that actually I would like a family. My reality was that my career was over as it was and I couldn't find a way forward. My reality was one of just being completely at a loss as to where to go, what to do. But I knew, as sure as the sun rose across the sky, that I could not go back. All right? That everything that used to be was gone. And that I had to find a different way because I had been living a lie. I had done the career that was expected of me. I had been, good in that sense. But I wasn't truly alive at the time when I was following all the prescribed, the textbook achievements that are prescribed and put on a young person's shoulder. So then the hard work started, because you can't just escape in a cloud of smoke. You gotta face the fact that you had a shitty childhood. You gotta face the fact that you're not, happy, clappy like a lot of other people, and you never will be. And that's okay. You start to really go into the healing process, and and there were of course many other things that happened around the same time. But the process of getting to where I was in a position to consciously manifest what I wanted to manifest really started when I stopped, or when I quit my addiction. Okay? Number one. Number two, when I started doing some healing work and actually addressing the things that needed to be addressed. When I moved and lived in nature for me has always been an insanely healing medium. The power of nature to heal. Like I went, because I had so many things happen, and I was so broken that I had to go and live by myself in this little hut in the middle of freaking winter. And I can't tell you how cold it gets in New Zealand, in an uninsulated hut. And at times I had to pretty much howl like a wounded beast. And it was so painful to come to grips with certain things, and the amount of crying and that I did. But at the same time, it was incredibly healing because I was surrounded by nature all the time. I'd wake up and at night you'd hear the little owls in the forest, and you wake up in the morning, there's fantails everywhere, and you don't have to go to work because I had no career anymore. That was all gone, and it just had time for the first time to breathe and to just be and to absorb that energy, okay? And to start creating. Isn't this beautiful? How special. I would also say that conscious manifestation, there's many ways one can go about that. You can do vision boards. You can get into paganism and Wicca and go into spell work. And that's all fine. I'm not saying it's not fine. But for me personally, the highest and the most potent form of magic, and I'll stand by this, is the power of prayer. I do mean prayer. And I mean prayer as not someone who is Christian or religious in that sense, but you don't have to be. A prayer from the heart to the divine will always be answered. But I think it's got to come from the heart, and too often things come from our minds. So I started paying attention to my health. I started paying attention to my sleep. I removed myself from social circles. That is so important, and it's actually by far the hardest to do. I'm gonna have to stop this here and start again because the camera runs out at 25 minutes. Hang on. Okay, so leaving social circles. I love how the cards reflect what I'm talking about. Here's a social circle right here. Some, a group of people, and they all look miserable, funnily enough. And I love this hand pulling on the strings. I don't know if you can see that, but it's like they're puppets. Because that often happens in group work, doesn't it? When you're in a group with other people, people tend to be, if you're not fully developed, if you're not consciously worked on yourself to develop yourself, to be a strong person on the inside, you'll be very much subject to this, all right? And there I was cutting that cord. That was really hard. That was by far the hardest thing. Not just the social circle in terms of my past life, where I was, part of, 20s, and you're successful and you've got your career and blah, blah, blah. But also in terms of avoiding those scenarios that invite that addiction to sneak back into your life. Okay? The people that, where there's drugs in abundance and things like that. Because, I don't know, like as soon as, you try and get clean, it's like everyone suddenly everywhere has got it. And it's like, no, I moved to a little bush hut to get away from all of that. And the owner of the land, who I didn't like, and anyway, he was I don't think he was a very good person, but had a birthday party because he had his own house on the bit of land that I was living on, and invited me over. And as soon as I get in there, he puts me in the kitchen and gets me to cook the magic mushrooms. I mean, like, I can't make this stuff up. It's like, well, I mean, I've never tried them. That was the funny thing about it, is that I've never tried them. I had no idea what to do with the bloody things. Apparently I overcooked them. Shit. But you see what I mean? It's like trying to stay away from all of that. It's so hard in today's society because it's literally everywhere. So anyway, but I got through it. Part of it was luck, but I think part of it was also me literally getting down on my knees and begging and praying for help. And things started to manifest. I kid you not. It's just like one thing after another. I went back to university, did a postgraduate degree, I did a yoga course, and then I moved to Australia. And bit by bit, I started coming out of that really dark place. And then, with each stepping stone, it just builds up from there. But first of all, you've got to figure out who you are and what you're all about. And you can't do that, number one, when you're addicted to drugs and your head is in a bubble, in a cloud. And you can't do that unless you also have faced the truth about yourself. And I know, okay, truth about oneself can't be objective and all this and that. That's semantics. I'm not going to go into that. There's, you know what I mean. You've seen people that walk around and they've never really been in solitude for an hour by themselves to really sit and figure out who they are. But they've got an opinion about everything else. I actually remember when I moved into my bush hut. I remember I met this guy at the time. And we weren't friends or anything. I'd only just met him because he was friends of the owner. And he said, with this wicked laugh, he said, he found out, I was about to move into that little pokey little hut. And he said, this is where you get to find out what the rest of the world has got to put up with. It was true. Absolutely true. So, the irony, I guess, of what I'm trying to say is that you gotta start paying attention to the material world. Material world means your body, what you eat, how well you eat, when you go to sleep, how long you go to sleep for. I mean, these aren't like set in stone or anything like that, but I guess they were for me, okay? After years of erratic living, no routine and nothing like that, I finally settled for a bit. I finally got into a rhythm, into a pattern of looking after myself, of going back to university, of doing some study, even though I really didn't want to, you know. I mean, that was actually really, really hard to go back because you're surrounded by kids in their 20s who know everything. I think they do. And there I was essentially trying to kickstart another trajectory, another career that was more aligned to what I wanted to do, while having hardly any money and, you know, still dealing with the after effects of everything that had happened in the previous years. But it's really important to know why you want a particular dream life, what it is that you want to achieve and why. Okay. What are you all about? What is your ethos? What do you align with spiritually? Here's a great question that was asked by my therapist, and the painful thing is, when he asked it, I could not answer it. He said, who are your role models? Who are your role models? And I honestly couldn't answer it. And it's not that I couldn't answer it because I couldn't think of any great role models. Of course I could. You know, you can think about amazing women throughout history. It's not that. It's that in my immediate environment, in the people that I worked with, or that were my superiors at work, or in my family, my immediate family, or, you know, just even in mainstream media, and, you know, I couldn't find anyone that I could really relate to as a role model. My manager at work, not my team leader, my manager above that, so person with fairly big responsibility, I didn't respect her. She seemed miserable in her job. Utterly miserable. You could tell. I mean, you know, anyone with a pulse could tell that this person wasn't really alive anymore. Yeah, sure, they had a nice salary. Yeah, sure, they had some power in that office. So what? We all have the same home in the end, right? My auntie used to say, don't rush. There's no need to rush. We all have the same destination. When you're driving down and you see all these people in their cars just rushing because they're important. So, yeah, that was a tragic thing that I couldn't, in my immediate environment and in the wider cultural circles, I couldn't really go, oh yeah, this is someone that I like to emulate. And of course, when you're ready and when you need it the most, that's when the teachers really appear. And at the time, when I met my tarot teacher, I knew instantly, that's it. That's someone. They're not perfect. Not about being perfect, right? No human being is. But that's someone that, to me, I look at their life and I look at the way they lived it and I go, yeah, that's what I want to do. That's just amazing. That someone could, you know, make money out of being a tarot teacher and a reader and an astrologer. And I think above all, I loved the light in her eyes. Someone who wasn't already dead. I'm very big on people's eyes. If they're still alive or not, you can tell. Without a doubt, you can tell. And then, you meet another one and you go, oh yeah, she's pretty interesting too. Yeah, it just starts, you start meeting all these interesting women. All of a sudden I was like, oh my God, there is another part of life. Where has this part been? It hasn't been in the stifling suburbia that I was brought up in. It was just suffocating. It wasn't even stifling. Oh, I could go on about that, but anyway. And yeah, all the pieces of the jigsaw, all of them, start putting in. There's like this magic moment in time, and I can't tell you exactly when it will be or when it is for anyone, but I know that they all started to fit together one at a time. And next thing you know, I find myself in Australia. I'm now working in the environmental field, which is where I wanted to go. I have an amazing job, and I mean, people told me I'll never get a job in Australia in the environment field because I have no experience. But anyway, and that's the devil coming up, isn't it? The fears, the sheer fear. And I tell you what, I honestly thought it got to the stage where I thought they were right. I'm ashamed to say that, but it did get to that. And then just when I thought all hope was gone, at the 11th hour, the universe manifested it. Let's talk about 11th hours, because I have some examples of that. I don't know whether it's because we're being tested or what. Once upon a time, this is what I was studying my postgraduate degree. I was working there part-time for about, I think it was, I don't know, it would have been less than 20 hours a week. Something along those lines. And of course I come to the end of my degree, and because at the time when you were studying postgraduate degree, you actually got an allowance from the state, and it was something like $200 or $250, I can't remember. But you were allowed to work and earn again that amount, which meant that what I received from the government and what I earned in my job, working part-time, I could just scrape by. I could just scrape by. And of course, I come to the end of my degree, and the government allowance is set to end. And I don't have any other job lined up, because I'm doing 20 hours a week, and I think I didn't see anything come up. I couldn't get anything in time, and literally in the last week that I'm receiving this government allowance, the very last week, so the week after, I was going to basically be on half an income, and I was already planning to ask my boyfriend at the time for money because I didn't know what else to do. Okay. Right then, the guy that was working in the bookshop with me, that was there full time, was caught by security guards defacing the toilets and writing not nice things, let's say. And he was immediately banned from campus, as he should have been. He was a bit weird and just not right. So I come into work one day and I'm offered a full-time job starting effectively immediately. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take it because I don't have anything else in the meanwhile. I mean, that was an 11th hour manifestation right there. And sometimes that's how things happen. It's like, something's got to happen. And it's like, come on, and I think part of the process is you've got to get to grips with not knowing. You got to get to grips with trusting in the universe, which I know sounds cliched, but it's so true. Okay, just have faith that what's happening is happening for a reason. Again, cliche, I know, but true. And that, you'll be looked after. Another example was when I moved to Australia and I couldn't find an environmental job, and I was so dejected because I honestly thought I would, and I was getting nowhere. And then I remember applying for the last job, and I said, this is the last one. I sent in my application, and then I started applying for call center jobs because that's, I had to get money. I had to basically move on and get some income. And I got a call for a call center job and I went for the interview, and I was due to start. So to back it up, I got a phone call, I went for an interview, and then I also got an interview at the last job that I applied for in the environmental field. And I was actually due to start a call center job on like a Monday, and like the Wednesday before, that very last job, that very last environmental job that I applied for, they called me and said, you got the job. In the Whitsundays, which is where I ended up in. I mean, I couldn't make this stuff up. Couldn't make it up. So then I had to call the call center people and say, oh, look, thanks for giving me a job, but I'm actually not going to start next week. And I felt a little bit bad about that, but there was just no way I would have said no to a professional job in the Whitsundays in Australia. I mean, you look up the Whitsundays if you don't know where they are, and it's a good place. So there I was, taking flight, right, on my way, soaring high. And yeah, basically one morning you wake up and you can't believe where you are. You know, you literally cannot believe that you're in an environmental job that no one thought you would get, and they all told you you wouldn't, you're dreaming, and that even I didn't believe in the end, like, right? Earning great income, great working conditions, got a relationship, going great, like, moving on to acreage. Like, everything just starts snowballing. But do you think I would have been in that position had I still been in the particular mindset of addiction? If I hadn't actually gone through that painful process of self-exploration? And I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that what I've done, that right now I'm some sort of higher being that's perfect, that I'm this oasis of calm and zen. No, I yell at my kids. Daily life happens. But I know who I am. I know what I'm about. I know what I love. I know what brings light into my eyes and my heart. And that's what I'm aligning with. And I align with that energy of Mother Earth, with spirituality, not because I want to get something out of it. I align with it because it is truly what I love. And I will practice it until my last breath. And I practice it across all areas of life, and that's another tarot tonic later on. So, I guess in this very long and meandering talk about consciously manifesting and visualizing the life you want to live, the important part that I want to convey across is that you really have to know why you want that life. That is so, so important. You gotta figure yourself out. Otherwise, you're building your foundation on sand, and it will come down sooner or later. It will all crumble. You gotta know who you are and what you're about. I can't stress that enough. You gotta figure out what your spirituality is. What do you align with spiritually or religiously? Okay. What do you have to give? Because you gotta give something, that's how energy works. You gotta figure these things out. They're really, really important. Lots of people in spiritual circles talk about the power of the mind and that you can manifest whatever you set your mind to. And I'm really sick of hearing that. And it might sound like I am contradicting myself here, because this is a video about the power of manifestation, right? But hear me out. What really irritates me about that, about people that say you can manifest anything, you know, the secret and the power of the mind and rah rah rah, is not that it's not true. I agree with them. It is absolutely true. But, and this is such a big but, is it aligned with the greater spirit of this world, with the greater consciousness? Because if you just want to manifest money and power, I'll tell you it's not. It's not aligned with the great spirit of the earth. And no, I'm not saying that money is not important. There's always someone, isn't there, in the background? You say money is not important. You know, you see how long you can live without money. Spare me. It's not, you know, people like that just don't get it. I just don't have time for them. It's about the importance of being active, conscious co-creators in the kind of earth and the kind of culture that we wish to impart from future generations. And what I see out there in the world isn't what I wish to put my effort and time and energy in co-creating. Certainly not what's being doled out by the mainstream media. Not at all. And I'm not the only one. And hallelujah for that. Okay. I'll give you another example about people that go on about talking about the power, you know, you can, you know, we're free to manifest the kind of life, you know, that we desire, without really asking themselves, you know, is it a good thing that we get, you know, what we want whenever we want it? They never really talk about that, you know, rampant consumerism or anything like that, which is rife in the spiritual circles, absolutely rife. Only a couple of weeks ago I was at a local market and I went over to the crystal store, you know, lots of nice shiny crystals. Girl can't resist. And what do I see in the corner of my eye but a whole bunch of fake tarot decks? Oh, they were fake. No denying it. Smaller in size, with the barcode on the back, the QR code on the back, so you know that those decks are fake. No doubt about it. And I say to the stall holder, hang on, my camera is about to shut off, so I'm going to have to do this again. Hang on. Yeah, so I say to the stall holder, excuse me, did you know that those decks, they are actually not like the real deck, that they're actually a counterfeit deck? And she says, oh yes, I know, but they're very portable. So that's why I have those ones, you know, because they're really portable for when I do events and markets. And I have the other ones back in my house, in my shop in my house or something like that. Unbelievable. You know, no issue with selling fake decks, you know, within a spiritual context, right? Absolutely none whatsoever. And of course, then I thought to myself, well, if you have no issue with selling fake decks, then how do I know that the crystals you're selling are, you know, ethically harvested and mined? Okay, or that they're even the real thing? Because there's a lot of crystals that aren't real crystals, and that's another conversation once again. So yeah, there's a lot of people in the spiritual community that are so fake and full of the fake spirituality. It just really, really, really annoys me and irritates me. Let me have some more tonic. This is the final stretch. I promise we're getting there with this discussion. Yeah, I use that example just to illustrate the importance of, you know, really questioning what you want and why you want it. Because you can justify anything that you do, no matter how wrong. Like the lady with the stall. Oh yeah, but they're very portable. You know, I get those because they're very portable. I really wanted to say also you've got no issues with the artists not receiving any royalties for their work, I guess, or something along those lines. But you know what? I had my kids with me. And I let people like that continue in their life and see where it gets them. The other danger, let me just, one final thing on, you know, the spiritual community. I've got quite a few things about to say about the spiritual community, but another one on talking about the power of the mind and, you know, the power of manifestation, which is true. I'm not saying it's not true, I'm just saying that it's being misused. Okay. Is when people, and you see this, you know, like clockwork, people that are so not part of the system, they're not, you know, they're like so spiritually aware and developed and conscious and so on, and they talk about the power of the mind. And then they start talking about, you know, reptilians and, you know, David Dwariko, whatever his name is, and they go into these like really bizarre diatribes about lizard people, and I'm like, so if, let me get this straight, you believe that we have the power to manifest anything and that our thoughts have power, and I'm not disputing that. You believe that, and yet you're choosing to direct your thoughts towards reptilians and lizard people who are here to imprison us and blah 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 and take over the world. That's where your conscious manifestation is going towards. But you believe that we have the power to co-create. I mean, if you believe we have the power to co-create and that our thoughts have power and that we have the power to manifest whatever we set our minds to, why would you consciously divert your thoughts to those topics? Okay, to topics of apocalypse, ideas about lizard people, reptilians, you name it, you know, really dark stuff. That is really dark stuff. As someone actually said to me once at this workshop I attended, you know, why would you stick your head down the sewer? Shit, that was fantastic. That was the best. That was the best, most succinct analogy. Because that's what you're doing when you go online, on YouTube, or on Telegraph, on Rumble, or wherever you want to go. And the world is open right now. I mean, that stuff is everywhere. If we have the power to consciously manifest the future, why would you divert your thoughts to that kind of rubbish? It's actually worse than rubbish. It's actually a real sick energy about that, I think, anyway. So, be careful about what you put your mind to, because that's what you do start to attract that. I'm not saying it's not true, it is absolutely true. And I remember warning a friend about this a couple of years ago. A friend who's deeply into conspiracy theories, and I'm not saying that some of the information in conspiracy theories isn't valuable or doesn't hold value or truth. I'm not saying that. But I gave her a warning around that, and which wasn't heeded. And let's just say that now she's dealing with the repercussions of it in terms of the people that have come into our life. And it's very negative. So anyway, yeah, this is a really, really long tarot tonic, and it can probably be split into quite a few different topics. Not tonics, topics. I'm starting to slur my words. I'm on to my second gin and tonic. But you know, some people that have known me for a long time will look at me, and even those that don't know me very well, might look at me, some with perhaps a bit of jealousy or incredulousness, and go, you know, how can you go from being a broke stoner in your 20s to basically being in the position now where I am by the time I was 40? Well, let's say right now, I'm 44, soon to be 44. I have my tarot and astrology work, which isn't much, but it's, you know, I love it. It's there. I have my environmental professional work, which is part-time at a professional wage, doing something that is important to me. I've got my family. We're mortgage-free. We're debt-free. And people look at all those things like, you know, it's luck. Like, they just fell out of the sky onto my lap. None of that is due to luck. And all of it, I kid you not, all of it is due to the fact that many years ago, when I hit that rock bottom place, I consciously chose to change. I literally remember kneeling. I am not kidding you, kneeling in prayer. I was so broken and really asking for help from a higher source, because I just didn't know what else to do. So, you know, that was, I don't know, 15 years ago now or more. Anyway, it's a long time ago. So yes, I'm wrapping it up. I don't really think I've got like a final message, like something that you have to take away from this. Well, I do. You know, pay attention to your thoughts. Pay attention to what it is you're consuming mentally, especially. Visualization and consciously working towards manifesting your dreams absolutely works, but you do have to figure out who you are and what your role is in the, you know, this greater beehive that we're all a part of. We all have to play a part. Okay? And align to that beautiful energy of our earth. To me, that is honestly the only truth. Because I think, you know, a friend said to me, and she was right recently, that, you know, we've kind of done everything as a species, right? We really have. We've done it all. But let's just not kid ourselves. Travel in space. We've gone to the bottom of the ocean. Every corner of the globe has been mapped. Artworks in abundance. Amazing artworks. Music. You know, our creativity is astonishing. When you listen to a piece of music that moves you incredibly so. When you read a book, you know, literature, entire works. It's all been, you know, we've done all of the things, right, collectively as a species. And I feel like it's now time to turn inwards, to really figure ourselves out. Because what good is all of that if we continuously plunder the earth for money, for profits, for greed. If we continue to pollute the waters and the air and destroy the forests and the very sanctity and sacredness of this earth, what good is all of that we have created? The greatest architectural works, the greatest works of literature, the greatest paintings, you name it. What good is it all? If we have our oceans just teeming with microplastics and sea life ingesting that, and people, indigenous people, dispossessed so we can mine rare minerals or gold, and forests being destroyed for the latest furniture fads, and you name it. It's like, what good is all that we have created if what we are facing now is a collective Easter Island event? Because it's coming. If we keep on going like this, like, I'm not saying that it's not impossible. And I think that's why it's really, really important to actually think about and question, what are you doing with your life? What are you following? Why? Yeah, anyway. Let's come to the end of this probably one of my longest videos. And I'm just going to leave it as it is, because I've had 2 gin and tonics and I'm feeling so good. That's fantastic. So, as always, thank you. If you've made it this far, thanks for sticking with me through my meandering ramble. I hope some of it made sense. I hope some of it inspired you. Offered some hope maybe, I don't know. But as always, thank you so much for being here and for watching this little channel of mine and for supporting it. I very, very much appreciate that. It means a lot to me, more than I could really express in words. And until my next video, please take care.